Hi everybody, my name is Lily and this is my friend Emma. Today I wanted to have her on to discuss the English lit kind of experience. Yeah. We were in a lot of English classes together at a small Christian university in South Carolina. My major is interdisciplinary, so I kind of have a different perspective than maybe what Emma has.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have her on to just kind of go over what it's like to study literature for any incoming freshmen or sophomores or people contemplating lit.
Yeah, anyone that's interested really in studying English literature.
Yeah, so I would say for this video, it's very chatty.
Yeah.
It's a little bit lengthy. So I would maybe just play it while you're doing something, while you're drawing or doing dishes or driving, because it's just a lot of conversation. But I think that everything we discussed was pretty valuable. Yeah. I actually took a lot from it.
Me too.
And I feel like I know you pretty well. So I'm going to be contemplating what we talked about for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so grab a drink, grab a cup of coffee, do whatever chore you've been putting off, and just listen to us talk about literature.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question I have for Emma is, how did we meet?
So we met in our English 235 class, which was grammar, or advanced grammar, and we sat on the same row. And the way that we kind of became friends was during a quiz that didn't go the way we were expecting. We decided that we both wanted to go and talk to the professor together and kind of tag team and figure out what really happened. And we just kind of bonded over that and over being two people that read before class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Emma... this was my first literature class, and so I didn't really have any friends, and I just sat on the first row. I didn't know Emma, and we really weren't, like, we talked during grammar, like, during the semester, but we didn't actually become friends till after. Yeah. And she never texted me the whole first semester, but she asked for my number, like, on a piece of paper, and so I wrote it down, and I thought it was really wholesome, but she, like, never actually texted me. So
it was for a project that we had. We had to do
Yeah, but we never actually texted about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the second question that I have for Emma is, what made you want to study English lit?
So I have always really liked English and liked storytelling. When I was in 7th grade, we had to do these like elective things, and one of the choices we had was creative writing, and the other ones were like going outside and doing yoga or football and stuff, and I was like, not about that. And so I really started liking writing then, and had always liked English. But then my senior year of high school, I was debating between actually being an English education major and a lit major, and I went into college as both. I was doubling in English lit and English education, but I had this AP lit teacher, and the thing he told me when I was telling him about my choice for major is that I would be really bored if I just chose the education major, because it's a lot of like educational philosophy and stuff like that doesn't always get you as deep into English as you want, because it limits the number of English courses you can actually take. And so by the time I was a sophomore, I had figured out I really want to take more English classes than education classes, and kind of decided to pursue that track over the other.
So you were still a education major when we met? Or are you saying in high school?
No, I changed as a sophomore. I changed the fall before we met.
Okay.
Because we met spring of sophomore year. Yeah.
Okay, I actually don't think I knew that. Yeah. That's cool. The next question that I have is, did you have a lot of previous English experience before starting the program?
So I had like the English classes that everybody had to take, English 1 and 2 in high school, and then I ended up taking AP for 3 and 4, so I took AP Lang instead of English 3. And that's like language and composition, and that's more about like how writing works and argument structure and that kind of thing. And then AP Literature was just an English literature class, and that was kind of my introduction into like studying stories and doing them in the way that we really did them during our time at AU. So that was kind of my experience beforehand. Yeah.
What type of books did you read in the AP Lit? Because we probably read really different things.
Yeah, I think the things I remember reading and really loving was, we read Hamlet by Shakespeare and we acted that out. We read Death of a Salesman, and we read A Streetcar Named Desire, were the 3 things I really remember.
Okay, I read Hamlet and Death of a Salesman, but we had really different education experiences. I've talked about this in a few previous videos, but I was classically educated, and so my reading structure was, it was less focused on like composition and writing, I guess, because we had a lot of grammar in middle school, but then in high school we basically kind of not ditched it, but we really focused on the reading. And then as we were reading, the assumption was you're reading, so you're kind of learning how to write. So I feel like I was less prepared for writing, and that's part of my like capabilities, I guess, is not writing. Like, I've never been a good writer, and it always really scared me. But reading, I was really confident in, versus it seems like you were probably confident in reading, but you probably had a lot more like writing experience going on.
Yeah, I did. I was public education the whole way through, and then my last 2 years of high school, I went to a boarding school that was still a public school, but was more like honor style classes and things. And those classes, were definitely focused on learning how to write, because that's what the AP classes teach you, is how to do essays, because that's what you do in college classes. And so that definitely helped me be more prepared for writing. And we also had to do something that was different from college and high school. Is in high school we had to do timed writing, so we would have to write an essay in an hour with no sources or whatever.
Could you have like previously like thought about it, or did you get the question in the
moment? Got the question in the moment.
Okay. And that's kind of like how the AP tests are, right?
Yeah,
because I didn't take any like AP lit tests, so I don't really know. I've heard about them, but okay.
But then in college, like, we didn't have, like, I don't think we had any in-class essays except for, like, 1 or 2 finals.
No. The only in-class essay I had was for philosophy exams, which I loved.
Yeah.
But we knew the prompt before. Anyways, that's kind of sidetracked. But that's interesting thing about our, like, different capabilities, I guess. I mean, you're a really good reader, but I'm not saying I'm a better reader, but just what we were trained for, it was a lot different.
Yeah, I think you know more of what to look for, and I, like, can write about it a little bit easier. And
I probably had a broader like basis to pull
Definitely. From. You make so many connections in class, and that was something that was really impressive to me, because I was like, this girl isn't even a literature major, like, because she was interdisciplinary, or you are still interdisciplinary. I was like, where is she pulling all of this from?
It was just from a bank of reading a lot in high school, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we talked about kind of her like background and what she was looking for in classes, we're gonna get more into her actual experiences. So what was your favorite 200 level class, and what did you learn your first 2 years?
My favorite 200 level class, hands down, was British literature. I love British literature in general, and that class was a survey of all of British literature. We'll talk about it later, but I found my senior capstone in that class. My topic for that, and I just really love the stories and the history behind it. And my experience with the first 2 years in the English program was there's a lot of like gen eds we have to take because we're in a liberal arts college, and so I was doing a lot of that the first 2 years and a few education classes, and so I really didn't start fully in the English program, like having a full schedule of English classes, until junior year. But the classes that I was taking were more like foundational and like survey, like that British literature class where it's a very broad range of time and like even location, and so just kind of getting immersed into what studying English looks like, and then also getting kind of a basis for how to study English, because we took English 225, which is like Introduction to Literary Studies, and so that was kind of like review work for both of us, I think, at that point, but it was also helpful to like put terms to a lot of things we were already doing.
Yeah. What book stood out from British lit, or like things that you read? Because I just took British literature this semester, and I think that we actually had kind of different experiences with it.
Yeah.
So I want to hear from her what she read, but then also maybe just kind of like if you were going into a British lit survey, kind of what you could expect, I guess.
Yeah. I read, the stories that I remember reading best are How to Talk to Girls at Parties.
Oh, that one was fun. That's by Neil Gaiman.
Mm-hmm. And James Joyce's Araby was really fun as well.
Is that a short story?
Yeah.
We didn't read that one.
Yeah, that one was really fun. And then it's kind of like sad. A lot of the stories we read in English are sad, but they're good.
True.
And I say they're fun because it's interesting to learn all of the connections, and a lot of them are really help me to see history better. And so I appreciate that about it. We read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which you guys read as well, I think.
No, we didn't.
You didn't read it? Oh, wow.
We didn't get to a lot of stuff, I don't think.
Yeah, I loved reading that in British literature because the professor we had really like was able to connect all of the symbols for that story.
I love how she reads symbolically.
Yeah.
And not just like, I don't know. Like with The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, she reads the symbols that's there and doesn't just try and make it, apply it to now, I guess. Anyways, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
What was your favorite upper level lit class and why?
My favorite upper level lit class was probably Romanticism, which is it's a mutual class. I think a big part of that is just Lily and I making really good friends in that class, and it made it so much more fun. But also I really connected with that period and the ideas that we talked about in it. I think it was interesting to hear kind of this longing for, one of the things we talked about was the sublime, which is just this kind of like untouchable thing that is more than what we think it is. And I really liked learning about that and learning about a lot of the writers during that time. We talked about the younger romantics and the older romantics and how the younger were kind of naive and didn't have the full span of their life to really adjust to like what life is like. And so a lot of their writing feels very short-sighted in a lot of ways because they are coming at it from so little experience. But then some of them would actually be mad at the older romantics who had lived longer than they did because they couldn't understand the wisdom that they had gained. Like one of the romantics was very upset with Wordsworth, who eventually like conformed to like the patriarchy and government and stuff. And he was like, you said you would never do this, but obviously like Wordsworth had to live and survive somehow. And so I think those dynamics were really interesting and show just how writing is a process, and it shows how people change over time and how people that only get so much time only get so much of an experience just because they're limited by their age.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Romanticism was probably my favorite upper level lit class that I've taken so far. But I think Romanticism is maybe my favorite period for everything in general.
Yeah.
Like, I love art Romanticism and I love the lit Romanticism. I like it because in the time that they were working, there was this really rigid class system for art and literature, especially for art, because you had to study in the academy if you were going to become a big kind of famous artist. And so then you have artists that decide, like, no, other people can paint that aren't just a part of the French Academy. And so they start making stuff that's different than, like, really tight and rigid paintings. They start making stuff that's really loose and full of expression. But at this point, their loose and full of expression is still really, like, mild.
Yeah.
And then I also love in literature and in art, they're looking at the medieval symbols that were always a part of literature. And they're not recontextualizing them, but they're basically saying, like, with the Enlightenment and everything, they're getting away of those meaningful symbols, and so they're bringing them back into art and literature. And so they're just kind of like reviving the language that's always been in art.
Yeah.
I guess people think that they were like super, what's the word, like,
not rebellious, but like against the machine.
Yeah, against the machine, rebellious, and romantics were, but like not near as much as they are now. And so I feel like Romanticism kind of gets a bad rap.
It's almost like they didn't even want to draw attention to the machine because they wanted to show how better nature was just on its own merit than comparing it. Because in the Victorian period, which we also took class on that together, they were definitely much more against the machine and outright like, this is horrible, people shouldn't be treated this way. But the Romantics were never like that. No. They were very much just like, there's a better way of living.
Yeah. I like Romanticism because it sheds light on some of the like stranger, darker parts of life.
Yeah.
And also the imagination and nature.
Yeah.
Which I think all of that is really important, and it brings God back into the picture where the Enlightenment was completely pushing him out. Right. So that's why I really like the Romanticism. I kind of forget about like the older and younger and like so that's interesting that you bring them up. I mean, what did you write your senior capstone on, and how did you pick your topic?
So, like I said, I found my senior capstone.
Maybe explain what a senior capstone is to those that don't know English terminology.
So a senior capstone is every major has their final like thing that they have to do when they're a senior that is kind of like their they're proof that they know what they're doing, basically. And for English, that's writing a senior capstone paper, and we choose a topic and we write a 15-page paper on it. And we also, in my version of the class, it's been taught by a few different professors over the years, and so I don't know how it went with everybody, but for my experience, we did a literature review as well, which meant we researched our topic in depth and found other people that had already written papers on it and summarized their papers in a literature review, to kind of see what scholarship had already been established on it before adding our own. And then our paper was an exploration of the topic we chose itself and the other literature that we found doing the literature review. And so for me, my topic I found in British literature when I was a sophomore, and I knew when I read the poems, I was like, this is what I want to do my senior capstone.
Oh, interesting. Why did you note that?
I just found the topic so fascinating, and when I came to the college we go to is also a Christian university, and so they look at everything from a Christian worldview. And I had never been in school like that before, and I was also learning a lot of things about God and the Bible for the first time because I had a little bit of a different religious upbringing. And so I just was fascinated by who God was and wanting to know him better. And I had no idea that you could study him through literature and through art and through history. And I loved that the English department gave me the opportunity to make really all of those connections, because English is such a intense discipline in that it connects to so many different fields. Like we have made connections to art, we've made connections to history. And so my senior capstone topic was metaphysical poetry. And I did The Temple by George Herbert is a collection, and in that his poem Redemption was the piece I started with, which talks about Christ's journey to the cross and how mankind doesn't always stop to recognize what that looked like and what our role is in that. And then I also did John Donne's Batter My Heart, Three-Person God, and I compared how both of those poems, even though they're different in their subject matter, because one, the speaker doesn't see God at all, and the other is like a direct prayer to God, both of them are misunderstandings of God's character. And that actually isn't what I started the capstone paper wanting to talk about. When we have to propose a thesis and propose a topic, and when I proposed the topic, I was kind of interested in looking at how can metaphysical poetry be a way of sharing the gospel with people that have never heard it before, or teaching people about who God is, and those topics kind of can be a little bit broad and a little what is the word, it's not as factual because everybody's experience is different. It's very subjective, and not that what I was writing is objective truth, obviously, because literature has so many interpretations, but I needed something with a little bit more evidence and a little bit more study behind it, and that I could prove a little bit more. And I also wanted to really focus on the text versus people's response to the text, and the evangelistic piece would be more of people's response to the text. I just am not as interested in people's response to stuff. So
do you want to explain what metaphysical poetry is for anybody that doesn't know?
Yeah, metaphysical poetry is poetry that uses an extended metaphor. That's what the metaphysical conceit is, to talk about God in a way. So one example would be George Herbert's poem The Pulley, which is really probably the easiest way to explain metaphysical poetry, because it literally compares God and how he draws mankind to himself as being a pulley. So that constant pulling together.
Yeah. I really like what Emma was talking about how you can understand God through art and literature and everything, because I was classically trained, but it was a classical Christian school, and so we weren't looking at the classics from a lens of man. We were looking at them with God in mind.
Right.
And then something that I've tried to do through art and art history and literature is, for me, it's really more sanctification than school, I think. I've never really looked at it like schoolwork unless I'm having to write a paper or do an essay. All of the training that we're doing, the reading and the painting and everything, for me is trying to bring God into the conversation, I guess. And so maybe that's because I was trained like that, but it's interesting hearing someone else talk about it, because I don't think it's ever something that we really talked about in class.
Right.
I think that some people probably picked up on it and others didn't.
Yeah.
And some professors were more intentional, bringing God into the discussion.
Yeah.
Whereas others weren't. But I think you can look at any of it with God in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For our British literature class, I don't know if she gave your class a theme, but she was like monsters, men, and God.
Yeah, I think she keeps those like 3 headings.
Yeah. And so everything we look at, we're trying to see who are the monsters in British literature, who is God in British literature, and who are people.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
Yeah, and also, I like what you're talking about all the different things, because I've never really thought about God being like an interdisciplinary God, but he's literally like the God who made everything, and so he knows everything, and he fully understands all of the things that we're discussing, which makes him like interdisciplinary, and I've never thought about it that way. That's really interesting, because I guess we're so like finite in our thinking. Like, you study literature, someone else studies science, and so breaking down the walls of those things and seeing how they can intersect is probably getting closer to thinking how God thinks, I would imagine. Okay, what were a few of your favorite assigned reading materials from your curriculum? This is a fun question.
That was a fun question. It's hard to just pick a few. I think one poet from Romanticism that I really liked was John Keats. He did a lot of talking about like the fragility of life and love and beauty.
Didn't someone else write a capstone on John Keats?
Yes, we had a person that talked about disease and how the romanticization of disease in John Keats, and like what would Keats think about that, basically, because he experienced a lot of loss because of tuberculosis, but other people romanticized it because they thought it made you a better writer. I really liked his writing, and I did a final paper on that and compared it to John Green's The Fault in Our Stars, actually, which
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was a really fun thing to do. I liked Agnes Grey, which is Anne Bronte's.
Yeah, Anne Bronte.
We read that in Victorian, and I thought that was really interesting, going back to the God theme, just seeing there's a lot of questions answered in literature, not like necessarily questions answered, but like topics explored that I didn't realize other people thought about, and that was really a novel that helped me to see that, because the woman in that novel, the protagonist, Agnes Grey, is exploring like what is it like to love God, but also like be in love with a man and have a romantic relationship. Like, is that okay, and how do I adjust to these feelings? And I think that was very moving for me to read about, especially in that period of my life. I was engaged and almost married at that point, so it was interesting to read about that. I love Frankenstein. We read it twice, and in my course of study, I read in British literature and in Romanticism, and I really like thinking about monsters and God and men, and all of those things.
And I feel like with Frankenstein, both professors had a really different reading. They weren't saying contradictory things, but they were looking at different parts of the story. Yeah. So I actually took the romantic class first and then British lit second. Yeah. So I kind of did like the harder reading of it first. Yeah. And then British lit was still we were still looking at it in a deep way, but it was more base, like, of the main things. I feel like in the Romanticism class, we really looked in depth at each of the characters. Yeah. And their stories. And in Brit-Lit, we looked at the narrative itself, learning about it being a framed narrative, and Robert Walton, who I love. We definitely talked about Robert Walton a lot more in Brit-Lit, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, and I really loved that, because I think that the way that an author chooses to write a story is so important, and so it was important to me that we talked about that. But then also talking about like broader themes of like how does God show up, or like what makes someone a god, what makes someone a person, and what makes somebody a monster too, was more of the Brit-Lit approach, which was broader because a lot of the characters fell into multiple of those categories. Yeah. Did you watch the new Frankenstein movie? I watched a version of the Frankenstein movie. Oh, the one on Netflix? Yeah, I just watched it for fun. What did you think about it? It was weird. I didn't like it that much in terms of how it represented the story. I think that they made a lot of interesting choices. It was weird. I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah. And they made weird storyline decisions that aren't like based off of the novel. But I thought each of the creative decisions that they made, and I feel like I'm arguing a really like not popular side in the lit community. That's okay. But I thought that each of the decisions they made sense in the context of the movie. Yeah. And they were highlighting a theme. Yeah. I think that like it made Victor much more of a villain than he was originally, I feel like. Yeah. Which the first time I read Frankenstein was in high school. And I read Victor is a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because of what I was going through in my life, though, I sympathize with him a lot more than people in higher education like to do.
Yeah.
Like at AU, I feel like
he's very vilified.
He's really vilified, and I can see that, but also I have a lot of like sympathy and compassion for him.
Yeah.
And so that's probably something that I'm also really unpopular for saying.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, they did really vilify him, but I feel like thematically it all worked.
Yeah. I agree that it worked. Like, the story that they presented made sense. It wasn't loyal to the original.
No, it wasn't loyal.
Story.
So I would say, like...
But, sorry. One thing I will say I was really pleased with was that they included Robert Walton, because that is almost never done. And
I agree.
I was so like, yes! Finally, the ship and the ice trip. I love it.
I also liked all of the, like, tidbits of romanticism.
Yeah.
Like, if you know romanticism, they, read Ozymandias, and then there were a lot of references to Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Yeah.
And then just, like, other romantic tidbits. So if you like romanticism, I feel like they did a good job with that.
Yeah.
And then also, like, the color theory was...
Yeah.
It was amazing. The color theory was amazing.
Yeah.
So I like a lot of the artistic, cinematic things they did, too.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that they didn't follow the storyline that closely, but...
Yeah.
That didn't bother me a ton. Like, I think other people were really hoping for, like, oh, this is finally the true Frankenstein adaptation. I liked the movie because I thought it was a well-done movie.
Yeah. It depends on what you're looking at it for. Like, if you're wanting a faithful adaptation, it's obviously not that. But if you're wanting to, like, look at themes or look at romanticism, I can see, like, what you're saying, too.
Did you have any other favorite texts?
Oh, this is such a... Yeah, it's such a hard question, too. I liked reading... I took medieval literature this last semester, and
Which I didn't take with her. I wish I could.
I know. It would have been fun. I liked reading a lot of the text in that class. I was really interested, actually, by Chaucer more than I thought I would be. A lot of people are like, it's just another white man writer.
What did y'all read for him?
We read The Knight's Tale and... Well, we didn't really read The Knight's Tale. We read, like, a summary of The Knight's Tale. I want to read more of him, actually. But the story that stuck with me was The Wife of Bath's Tale.
Yeah.
That one was really interesting because he's just writing from a perspective that would be kind of surprising to somebody who assumes that Chaucer's like a misogynist, and not that he like isn't. We didn't go that much into his personal history and how he treated people and all of that. But he is writing from a very bold perspective because he's writing from a woman's point of view, which is a big deal. Especially at that time period, because women were like, it was not a thing in medieval society, like not a good time for women. So to be writing from a women's perspective and to like make the claim that women shouldn't have power, and we talked about how like he definitely went to the extreme, saying like women should have power over men instead of like equality. But one thing that we talked about is a lot of the texts in medieval literature feature extremes, and it kind of shows that to some degree there have to be extremes to get any progress at all, in terms of like society moving towards a goal. So that was really interesting to me to read, but that's kind of what stuck on my mind. Yeah,
I read the Canterbury Tales in sophomore year of high school. We read them during COVID, so I was reading probably The Wives' Tale by the pool, which is really funny thinking about. Yeah, we probably didn't look at it from that lens at all, like contemplating like roles and that type of thing. So that's interesting. I'd be interested to go back and read it, thinking about that. But I honestly don't even remember what we discussed because it was COVID. But I do like the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah.
I remember the word saucy a lot.
Yeah.
Or is that Julius Caesar? I think it's both.
Yeah.
Okay. Any others?
Shakespeare. We took a Shakespeare class. You're taking it this spring.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it this spring.
I'm very excited. We read Othello in that, and I really loved Othello.
I've never read Othello.
It's really good. I was really blown away by it. And I loved the professor that taught it. And I also really liked Much Ado About Nothing. It's one of the comedies, I believe. And it was just hilarious to me. And I watched a really good production of it, so that helped a lot too. But picking up on some of the themes and the mannerisms was really, really interesting.
Do you feel like Shakespeare is hard to read if you're not in a class for it?
I think so, and I think it's also hard to read. My biggest recommendation for reading Shakespeare actually came from that class, and it's to watch it alongside like an actual production, because a lot of things just fall flat on the page. Yeah. They're actually supposed to be humorous, because Shakespeare was really funny.
We just have a different sense of humor, and seeing it played out, I guess, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I haven't taken a formal Shakespeare class yet. I read a lot of Shakespeare in high school, and we would do it where we would like all read out loud together, so that was really fun. And I think the best paper I ever wrote in high school was on Macbeth. Since then I think I've only read The Winter's Tale, A Winter's Tale, and A Midsummer Night's Dream on my own. And I didn't find it super challenging, but I'm like still kind of daunted by Shakespeare. Like,
yeah,
I understood everything that was going on, but for some reason I think he's just kind of this like,
yeah,
you know,
he slips a lot in there that you don't realize if you don't have somebody breaking it down for you.
Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why it's so easy to return to him, like, throughout your entire life, is that there is so much that you don't pick up on probably the first, second, or third time you read it.
Yeah, and there's different characters that you can probably relate to at different points in your life. Like, we read King Henry IV Part 1, and I feel like if I was in different stages of my life, I could relate to, like, the king versus his son differently. In terms of what they're after, in terms of control versus freedom. So
I want to read, I have over there, The Elizabethan World Picture. You probably haven't heard of it, but it's by Tilliard, I think. But it's basically a book. I haven't read it, so I don't exactly know. But it kind of walks through the Elizabethan world picture, what was going on kind of in like society and mentally, what people were conceptualizing different from us moderns. And so I think that'll be really helpful, having that framework going into the class. I want to try and read it next week. It's really short. I'm excited to take Shakespeare.
You should be. It's good.
If you could give any advice to a freshman or sophomore, or just like someone deciding to study English Lit, because I'm assuming if you find this video, that might be what you're looking for. What would you say to them?
I would say if you're interested in studying it, like, you don't have to jump majors right away, at least at our course, or in our school. Like, the English Lit program is only like 30 required credit hours, which is very short compared to some that are
really?
Like, they're like 60 or 80. So take a class or take two classes that you might be interested in. Take a period that you know that you like or might like, and see like if you like discussing reading in that way. For me, I found that it was a great opportunity to read things that like I want to read but probably wouldn't read on my own, because like you said, I'm daunted by the thought of trying to understand that all on my own. And so that was really helpful for me. I would also say, like, if you are already studying English, or if you're like just starting your program and you have more choices to make, think about the things that you really like, because you have the opportunity, at least in our program, to really choose what classes you take, and what direction you go with it. I took a lot more British literature than American literature. I would say I have a very limited understanding of American literature compared to British, because I took so many British literature courses, because that was what I liked and related to the most, and I found it more interesting than American Lit. But I would definitely go back and take more American Lit if I had time. But just choose what you're interested in and take those, and go in with an open mind. One thing that can feel really scary, because English can feel like there's a lot of academics there that are really passionate about like making good grades and doing well, is just keep an open mind and know that, like I had said earlier, there's not one correct interpretation of any text, and so someone could say something totally different than you and it can still be true. And not to get kind of like butthurt or like scared, like, oh, I'm not getting it because they're having different answers than me. You're probably still understanding, and you're still reading in a very important and valuable way, and it's important to also bring those insights to class discussions, because your professors can illuminate on all of those perspectives.
I think that like we have usually really different readings of things. Not that either of us are incorrect.
Right.
I do think there are incorrect readings, but you can like pick out certain things. That like I usually lean more into the like comparing it to art or art history or making references to other texts that I read versus I'm trying to think about what you would say.
I really look at characters a lot.
You do look at the characters a lot versus I don't as much. I think more about time period and setting.
Yeah, I think more about characters and like the narrative shape. So like, is it a frame narrative? Are they letters? Like how did the author construct the story and why?
Yeah.
And what, like, is it past tense, present tense? Why?
Yeah. And that's probably also because you were maybe more formally trained in writing. So I just don't think about all the formal elements. But,
something neither of us think about is, the 5-point story structure.
This year I was in like a basic lit class because I started with the harder stuff because my major is interdisciplinary. So I just like decided I wanted to take like Victorian and Romanticism before the basic lit classes. And this year I forgot the 5 points of a story on an exam. And it's okay. I don't care. I know what they are.
Yeah. But we also didn't really talk about them in class. Like, there was never a time where we got to an exam and it was like, what was the climax of Othello? It was like, never like that.
And so I just, like I said, I wasn't trained in that way. Like, I was just trained to read it and pick up on things, and I wasn't given, like, a really rigid, oh, this is when this should happen, and this is when this should happen. Yeah. And so I know we talked about it in middle school, but I don't think I was ever tested on it. And then I read it. I was preparing for the exam, and I read it, and I was like, yeah, there's no way I'll forget this. Like, I forgot it. That's really funny. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people stumble into literature because they don't know what else they want to do.
Yeah.
Or they just like reading. And I feel like that's a really good way to come to it. Yeah. I'm interdisciplinary, so if you like something else, I feel like that's another good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like, even if you want to teach, I feel like English is a good place to start because you can always get a master's or something.
Right. My original plan when I had even switched to English Lit was still to go into education. I'm not necessarily, I'm not doing that right now. But I was just like, I'll take all the English classes I want now. And then there are different programs. Even you don't even have to get a master's degree.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can do like PACE program and whatever. That might be just our state or a few states. But there are other states that have same kind of programs where teachers are just so needed that if you have the content area, they'll work with you on the education part.
I mean, for me, I've never been concerned with what job was I going to get when I was done.
Yeah.
I solely study the things I study because I enjoy them. Yeah. And I think there's a place for them in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that if you love them, you'll be able to monetize them in some way.
Yeah.
I don't think that these things are for monetization. Like, right. But I think that if I need to, I'll be able to use my degree. And I know what I'm going to do afterwards, and it doesn't even involve them. Mm-hmm. But I think that if I hadn't taken these 4 years, I would be so much less of like a human, literally.
Yeah. I think that's something people really overlook with college, especially right now, because like the economy is bad or whatever. Is like, I have to get a good degree so that I can get a good job so that I can have a good life. And I just don't think that's the point of college, or was the point of college when it was originally.
It definitely wasn't the point.
Yeah. Established. And so it's much more fruitful when you go into it from the perspective of, I'm doing this to learn and to become more knowledgeable in the area that I'm studying than I'm doing this to get a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that if you're pursuing things for the right reasons, like, God will open doors for you that you're not expecting, even if it's not in your degree.
Yeah.
And I think employers nowadays, a lot of cases are much more interested in you just being a competent person with a piece of paper than like
what's on the paper.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For at least most jobs that we would go for.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to ever get like a master's or a doctorate, English is a good place to start.
Yeah.
What are your plans for the future with your degree?
I think just continuing to learn about English and taking what I've learned about how to study English and applying that in my own personal study. I've thought at different times about like continuing higher education and whether or not that's right for me, and at this point I don't know. But I know that no matter what I do in terms of formal education, I will always be a student of English, and that's something I want to be. And so having the degree has given me the tools to study that on my own, whether it looks like just completely reading a book on my own that I wouldn't have read before because I was scared about it.
Yeah.
Or it could even look like taking what I've learned and then going into either a formal or informal setting. We really like the House of Humane Letters, and they do classes that aren't graded. They're not for credit. They're just for people that want to learn about English and literature, and taking what I've learned from my formal education, applying that to a more informal English setting, or not informal might not be the right word, but like not credit.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
just not graded, not for anything in particular other than your enjoyment of it.
Yeah, and so I think I just want to use my degree for what it's made for, and studying English better and approaching everything that I read with a more open eye because of that.
Yeah, and Emma is moving.
Yes.
In August.
Yeah.
Which is like super exciting. She's moving to England, I think.
Yes, I'm moving to Bath, England. My husband is.
I'm so jealous.
I'm gonna be so excited. But my husband's moving for a PhD, so we'll be there. And I'm just excited to like.
You're gonna be in such a literary place.
I know, to like read the things that I have wanted to read within the context that they were written. Obviously not the historical context, but the geographical place. That'll be really interesting, and just to see things that I've read about before will be really, really cool.
I'm definitely gonna be visiting her, and she's gonna be giving me a lot of tours.
Yes.
It would also be fun if we picked like a book to like read along as we were like going to the places. Oh my gosh, that'd be so fun.
We could read the Canterbury Tales on the pilgrimage.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be visiting Emma.
Yes.
Just gotta make a little money first.
That's okay.
Okay, so do you want to do these popcorn questions and then this one?
Sure.
Or, okay. So Emma created, or did I create these?
No, I added them last night.
Okay, I was like, wait, Emma wrote these for herself.
Yeah.
Were there any lit classes that you didn't take that you wish you did?
Yeah, so I kind of hit on this earlier, but like I said, I was so into British literature that I kind of overlooked everything else. And so I really would like, yeah, I'm a British lit girl. There's no other way to put it. But I think I would definitely go back and take some more American lit. We took one American lit class together, and it was quite the experience. But I liked some of what we read. I think it would be interesting to read a little bit earlier of a period.
Yes, earlier.
Because
20th century.
Yeah, 20th century is very postmodern, modern, kind of a nightmare.
Depressing.
Yeah, especially to read in like January. Not the best. But it was still interesting and helped me to understand American history a little better. Every time I read a book that's set within within America, I feel like I understand American history a little bit better.
That was a good class for that.
Yeah, and so I think I would like to read earlier literature from that for sure.
I also haven't taken much American lit class, and I wonder if it's because I was kind of just trying to take whatever Emma took.
Yeah.
And you were obviously kind of like picking the Brit lit classes, so I was like, oh sure, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I would have like branched out more if not for you. I'm happy I took all the classes with Emma though.
Yeah, me too.
I don't enjoy classes near as much when Emma's not there.
Oh, thank you. I don't enjoy them when you're not there.
I don't know a lot of the other lit students very well, which probably sounds terrible, but
well, it's a very introverted department.
It is,
so
and
it's hard to make.
I'm not there a lot. Like I'm there for 1 or 2 classes, and then everybody recognizes me, but
and everybody kind of recognizes each other. There's very few like deeper friendships. Like there are, but it's a lot of like one person paired with one person. So like
we were just a bunch of introverts. I'm not really an introvert, but you are, which is probably why we became friends.
Yeah, and why I didn't text her when she gave me her number on paper.
And now
I still have the paper.
Oh, that's so funny. Now I think Emma's my most texted person. I text Emma more than I text my husband.
Yeah, me too. I text Emma more than my husband.
I don't have any reason to text Miles though usually.
Yeah,
that's so funny. Miles always asks, so what are you going to talk about now? Okay. How did studying English help with other disciplines or give opportunities to explore other disciplines?
Yeah, that was the thing I was the most surprised about with studying English, was that it just opened up so many more worlds for me. We looked at a couple art pieces, especially in Victorian and Romanticism, because those periods align so well, and I think our professor also just had a little bit of an interest in the art. And so it was interesting to look at the art from those times. I would say a big one for me was history. I find history really, really hard to conceptualize, especially when reading just from a textbook and time period.
Oh yeah, textbooks are terrible.
I don't enjoy it, and I find it hard to understand, but I remember it better when it's in a book or it's in a story. And even like real people, like there will be mentions of characters in the books that are fictional novels, but they're real characters that were in that time period. Like I just finished reading a book that is set in like a broad period of American history from like World War I all the way through Vietnam kind of ending, but Lyndon B. Johnson is mentioned in that, and I feel like I understand him a little bit better. Obviously the perspective is shifted based on what the characters that I was reading about opinions were of them, but it was just interesting to like read about that, and I feel like it opened history a lot more for me. I also feel like it opened theology a lot more for me. and being able to understand who God is and how people have looked at God differently over time, and how the church has even been over time. My medieval lit class kind of helped me to see that it's really interesting because medieval Britain was supposed to be so Christian, but their attitude just wasn't. And the people just didn't act that way, even though the church was supposed to be the most important thing. If you look at how they actually were and like what the principles they lived by were, it was very different than the way that we read and live by scripture now as modern Christians. So
yeah, I think part of that is scripture is so much more accessible now to us.
Yeah, that is true. For sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then this last question that she asked herself is, what impact did studying English have on your life as a whole? That's a really good question.
Thanks. I think, and you'll hear this from pretty much everybody that studies English, but it makes you a more sympathetic person because you just get the opportunity to jump into the shoes of so many people that you never would have thought about, like how you said that you can relate to Victor Frankenstein, who literally created a monster. And
everybody hates on him.
Yeah. But you can relate to him because you see the inner workings.
I have to say, when I related to Victor Frankenstein the most was when I had made a series of bad decisions.
Yeah.
And I had kind of found myself in this, like, entire mess.
Yeah.
And so I was relating to Victor because he made a series of bad decisions and he was living with it.
Yeah.
And the grief that he has that so many people say is, like, kind of fake. Yeah. I was like, there's no way this is so real. And then I was also contemplating, like, does that make me a monster? Or, you know, like, can people just make bad decisions but not be monstrous? Anyways.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a...
But I think that's important.
Yeah.
And to that extent, also, English can be kind of cathartic because you find these characters, like, I found Agnes Grey, who is asking these questions that I didn't think anybody else was asking. And it's helpful to see yourself represented in works in a lot of different ways. And it's just as helpful to see yourself represented as it is to see other people represented. Because then you know, hey, somebody else is reading about my experience, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing to know, too. It makes you more kind to people, I think, because it shows you how little we can see about what's going on in someone's head.
That's true.
And so, yeah. I think that is my answer for that.
That's a good answer. I feel like I don't typically think about the sympathy/empathy part of it. It's a bigger emphasis, I guess, in some of the classes that we took that I had never contemplated, I guess, just because I had read so much before that I never really thought about, oh, wait, maybe I'm stepping into other people's shoes. And empathy is such, like, a modern term that I don't think about it a lot, but it is true. And it reminds me of the C.S. Lewis quote. My eye is really itching. The C.S. Lewis quote where he said, he was kind of taking pity on, like, non-readers.
Yeah.
I wish I had it. And he was basically like, you're gonna live hundreds of lives. And that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but he said it in a very good way. Yeah. But he was like, you're gonna live hundreds of lives, and then the people that don't read are gonna forever stay boxed in one life. And so they only have one mindset. Yeah. But, like, me and you, we jump between different people's thoughts all the time. Yeah. And, yeah, that's interesting.
I love that. The idea that you get to live so many more lives if you read.
Yeah.
And experience things like you never would have experienced if you're reading different historical periods. Like, obviously you can't know what it's like to literally live at that time, but you can get an idea of, like, what was it like to be a Victorian woman, or what was it like to be a man living in the Romantic period. And that is really important to experience too. Because humanity has a shared history, and understanding how we got to where we are now is so important. And I think people don't realize, like, I don't know, for me, it can be easy to feel like we were just plopped into the timeline somewhere and to not understand, why is the world this way? But if you study English or history or whatever, and you see, like, no, the world really has slowly built towards this mess that we're in now. But we can see, like, threads of it hundreds of years before, like the Industrial Revolution during the Victorian period. I think about that all the time, to the, like, burnout culture that we're experiencing now. It's the same thing in different wrapping paper, basically.
It is. I think that's really true. And I think that that's one of the issues with education now, is that it, like, cuts off that previous hundreds of years of experience, because we're just not very well educated, and we don't have...
We don't go very far back.
We don't go far back. We go back
maybe
to World War II.
Yeah.
World War One.
Yeah.
World War I feel like is stretching it for most people.
Yeah. In terms of solid understanding, yeah.
Yeah, so I do think that literature is a really good way to help fix that issue. Yeah. This is a question that I guess it's this last question that I'm ending with. How do you want to continue to implement reading in your everyday life? Wait, did I already ask this one? No. Okay, this is the last one.
Yeah. So, implementing reading in my everyday life, I love studying literature for the sake of studying literature itself, and like reading classics and that kind of thing. I also love creative writing, and so for me, a big part of reading is reading stuff that's coming out now, and that people are publishing currently, and sometimes that stuff is good. A lot of the times it's not. And so, or like, not that it's overall bad, it's just that it feels like there's trends in writing now, which is like very
serious trends,
very annoying things that like, I'm just like, this shouldn't be in books. Basically, we've talked a lot about like, smut and the role that has played in the American reading world and just the reading world in general, and why it's not appropriate. And like how it can take away from the reading experience as well. But it feels formulaic at this point, which is just stupid. But anyway, so I do want to read stuff that's coming out now, but I also want to read classics. And so I think I have yet to find a perfect balance of, for every 2 modern books I read, I'll read 1 classic or whatever.
C.S. Lewis said for every 1 modern book, you need to read 3 books older than I think 300 years.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Crazy to think about, yeah. But yeah, and it's easy for me, especially right now, because I'm tired, to like fall into the trap of reading newer stuff because it's faster to read too. I don't know if other people have noticed this, I'm sure you have, but like stuff that's more recently published, the writing just isn't as dense. And people are almost encouraged not to write as densely now, which is interesting as well.
It's funny because those things take me longer.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think
because it's not as gripping.
It doesn't pull me in as much, and I know that they're just like trying to entertain me, I guess.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, literature, like there is a point of being entertained, but it's also so much more than that, and it's about learning and being deeper than that. And so yeah, the denser writing I feel like definitely sucks you in more.
Yeah, and it's also because she likes characters and I like setting, and there's less setting in like super recent stuff, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's interesting. This is the last question because I just thought of it. Recently, I feel like I've been having a hard time, like, because I read a lot.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the first things I think about in the day, like when I'm gonna read. But then frequently when I sit down to read, it's not my attention span that's the problem. It's my like feeling that I should be doing something else, like productivity wise, or like working on painting or cleaning my house, and so this week it's been like winter break, and so I've been reading a lot. And I got to a point a few days ago where everything that I could have possibly done was done in terms of productivity. Like I had literally even mopped. Yeah. Everything was spotless. I wasn't at work, and I just sat down and I felt like I shouldn't have been reading, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a weird mindset day. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, like, because I do read a lot, but frequently it's like in between productivity and school and stuff, and so it's like 10 pages here, 10 pages here, but then I'm wondering, like, at least when I graduate and my life maybe slows down a bit, I don't want to have that feeling forever of like I should be jumping to the next thing and I shouldn't be sitting here for an hour. And so do you want to speak a little bit like to the importance of like why actually maybe slowing down is what you should be doing? I don't know. That's just something I've been struggling with, so I was like, maybe Emma has an answer.
Yeah, we actually had to do this yesterday. My husband is having a little bit of head issues because we went snowboarding, but he's okay.
Did he hit his head?
Yeah, but he's fine. It was just like a little bit of residual pain, and so yesterday I was kind of like, I think we need to do like no screens all day, which is like revolutionary now. Like, let's not do screens today, let's not do anything super brain intensive. He really likes board games. I was like, we probably shouldn't do board games because that's a lot of mental energy.
That's really funny.
Let's just kind of like read and chill, and if you want to draw, you can draw.
Does he like to draw?
Yeah, he likes drawing. And I think I ended up just pretty much reading the whole day, and it was really, really nice to do that, and it reminded me of why it's important. I think in the like productivity world, we've kind of trained ourselves to be like anything that isn't gonna like make money or lead to making money is bad. And that's just not the case. There's so much more to life than money, and worldly goods and stuff, and books is a big source of that otherness, of the things that are better beyond money, because it really does give you access to things that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. In one way, it's like kind of like what C.S. Lewis said about you get to live 100 lives. You also get to travel 100 places if you want. Read books that are set in different areas, to places you might not be able to go. For me, reading is really helpful because I am a little limited by anxiety. I can't do a lot of things that are super scary to me, like more adventurous things. And so being able to read about them is a way for me to do things that I never would have done before, and to experience things I wouldn't get to experience just because I'm scared. But it also, and some people might say, well, like, that's like safeguarding yourself or whatever, and it's stopping you from actually doing it. But sometimes reading about those things makes me realize, like, it's okay and I can actually do it. And so I think that that's important too. I think, yeah, we just place a lot of value on money and productivity, and reading is productive. I think, like, there is the danger also of, like, over reading, in terms of, like, just reading for the sake of hitting your Goodreads goal or whatever. But if you're reading because that is something that you want to do and you want to learn from it, and you want to have these different experiences, that's a good thing, and you should lean into that, because it's also a blessing to be able to read,
yeah, it is.
and to have the time to read, and we're made for that. A liturgy that we really like, my husband really likes, is actually about parties and feasting, but he says that, like, celebrations are an act of war against the devil.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
It's like a liturgy before a feast, I think. From Every Moment Holy.
Yeah.
But I think in a very similar way, like, reading and actually resting and doing things that you enjoy is an act of war against Satan, who I think really at this point in our lives and in history is using productivity as a way to draw us away from things that God created for us that are good.
I think you're right. Yeah, because I found myself last night, I was tired, my brain was tired, but it was only like 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I could keep reading, but I'm not understanding anything. We weren't at the point where we could just, like, maybe watch a show or a movie or something.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I don't just want to scroll on my phone while my brain is tired, because that probably makes it worse.
Yeah.
So maybe part of it is just figuring out things like, when I'm tired, not forcing myself to keep reading, but not looking at my phone just because everything's done. And this is an issue I rarely have, because normally it's really busy in the semester.
Yeah.
But this break I've had not a ton of time, but the last few days I have. So that was encouraging, Emma. Thank you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I wanted to have Emma on because I just thought it would be fun, but also I thought it would be encouraging maybe to other lit students. And also, since she's moving and graduated and she was one of my best friends, I kind of wanted to talk to her a little bit more and hear things that maybe I hadn't heard before. So if you like this video, follow along. Maybe I'll do more stuff. It stands to be seen, because it seems like I always post one video in January and then disappear for a year. But yeah, maybe you'll see more of Emma.
Sure.
Let us know. Do you want more of Emma?
Yeah.
I think so. All right, well, I hope you have a good day. Bye.